Make we share the stories of the elders them who travel across big water for build Great Britain.
Come listen story now.
Do any job that they assigned us to do, right? Because I know my other cousin Selwyn Walwyn at home. He was
an engineer or something.
No, he wasn't an engineer. He was health, to do with health, right? He was like a community health officer, and he had an education. He had a certificate and stuff like that. But he worked in the foundry. He worked with my dad in West Yorkshire Copper Works, right, which is a foundry. So they had no expectations of us, and that's why when I said to my teacher that I can do better than this, she had she'd have thought of me being I had an accent. I had just arrived from the Caribbean. She had no knowledge of who I was, and she must have thought I was from Africa, for example, and therefore had no expectations of me. And that carried on through school, more or less.
So you never got moved up into higher groups?
I never got moved up into a higher class until I went into secondary school. When I left Calvary School, we did the 11 plus, but it wasn't like you weren't prepped. You weren't told this exam is a critical exam, right? And it will happen in 6 weeks. So you need to prep for it, right? We weren't given that. I don't recall having that information. So you were prepped for it, so you could do your best, right? So the 11 plus, I did the 11 plus and did not pass it. And then I was assigned to go to Scott Hall Secondary Modern School. But within a year there, I came top of the class in Scott Hall. I remember that French was my favourite lesson, although I've never spoken French and did not even know what French was at all. But the teacher, why I would come first in that class, the whole class of 30 kids, was that Madame Brown, the French teacher, she was caring, right? I connected with her straight away. Because you went into her class and she did not speak any English. Bonjour madame, bonjour les enfants. I'm thinking, what the bloody hell is she on about? You know what I mean, right? And and she would not speak any English. Say, anglais, madame. No, not anglais. En français, right? And that's how you learn. I came first in French. I came first in history. I came first in this. I came first in that. She showed that she was into me, and she was my favorite teacher of all the teachers in secondary school. But I came first on the whole class. There were 30 kids in my class. Jewish kids, other kids, working class kids from Miles Hills, the area there. And I came first.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah, education with love will absolutely, encourage any child.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Education with love. And
Yeah.
And I always wonder what it was like because my dad came over when he was 14, and it's like, from going to seeing teachers who look like you, who care about you, to come in here,
to teachers who care about you.
They're not necessarily caring about your education.
No.
It must be heartbreaking.
Yeah. It was like, So I think from that first infant thing, I don't recall ever trying. I don't really recall ever trying again. I think she knocked it out of me. Yeah. She knocked the stuffing out of me by just not acknowledging that I was saying to her that I was capable. And she was saying to me, no, you're not capable. How can you be more capable? You just come from Africa. How can you be more capable than my white kids who were in this class with you? Right? She could, and I don't blame her. That was where she was coming from, right? She didn't have no perception of who I was. She didn't care about me, really. She was just doing her job.
So when you came to the school, did they not try to do any tests to see where your actual...
I don't recall having a test. Whether they did, I don't recall having a test.
Okay, so going back to high school, and we talked about careers. What careers advice were you given?
Right. I think they were well, I had no idea because I was good at French. Actually, I wanted to be an air hostess. Right. I think I had that in my mind. That was a good. And we also did in school. I was in the school choir, and so we would learn Germans. We learned Silent Night and O Christmas Tree in German. Right. So I thought, hey, I can pick up. I found German. I found singing "O Tanumba, feast Roy's in that kind of letter," and I've left school like how many years, right? Right? And I somehow began to think, oh, I can pick up languages. I found German and I found French fairly easy to learn. So I thought, had that been the case, that I should become an air hostess, right? Or a linguist, right? But the careers people never kind of like directed me down that road. I think they spoke about maybe nursing or maybe secretariat. I don't even recall what they told me, to be honest with you. I don't recall what they told me. And that's why I ended up at Kingfisher's being a telephonist receptionist. What they should have done was look at my strength, because I was in an A. I left school. I started in a B class. I left in an A class, and they didn't really look to see what. If they'd asked me what my strengths were, what I really loved, they would have known that I loved languages, and then they could have then directed me along those areas, and said, okay, well, so when you leave school, this is what you need to do. When you leave Scotland, you need to go to maybe Park Lane College or wherever and pick up languages there and do something. No, they didn't say anything like that. And so that's how I ended up at Kingfisher's doing the switchboard, becoming a telephonist receptionist.
Okay. Right. What's your favourite part about being in Leeds?
My favourite part?
Yeah.
I don't think I like being here for most of my life, to be honest with you, because I think I recall not wanting to adopt the language, especially the Yorkshire language. I refuse to adopt that style of speaking. So I don't really think that no, because I made a decision age 7 that I would return back to St. Kitts.
Okay.
And so that my journey here was going to be a transient journey. This was not my home. I knew at age 7 that this was not my home, that my home was St. Kitts, and that I would have to return. And that's why I was taking photographs, and that's why I was hanging on to things for my dear life, right? And that's always been with me. So being in Leeds, I was just being in Leeds. I was being. I was not living as such.
Okay, well, I'm going to change the question then.
Okay.
What was your favourite aspect that came from you being in Leeds?
My favourite aspect of being in Leeds?
Yeah, so like the people.
Family, or were
Yeah,
you part of associations?
Yeah,
or...
I suppose because that the people around me, the Chapeltown was the people around me was black.
Yeah.
And if not, and a lot of them were from St. Kitts.
Yes.
And Jamaica, Barbados, so we had that. And the favourite thing was we had the United Caribbean Association, the UCA.
Okay.
It was called the UCA, United Caribbean Association, right? So it was an association of all the Caribbean islands.
Yeah.
And I became part of that.
What did they do? What was
so I was still at school. I was still at school when one of the older members key people in Leeds were like Calvin Beach, Arthur France, Mr. Harris, Gertrude Paul. They were the founders of the UCA, right? And they asked me as a school kid to come and be the assistant secretary to Mrs. Paul, who would take minutes of their meetings.
Yeah.
Right? And so at age 15, still at school, and the meetings were held in the street, Mexborough Avenue, at number 33, Mr. Harris's house, Enos Harris's house. And we live at 25, so it was just a few days, so I could run out and go be there and take minutes of their meetings.
Yeah.
So I suppose that is.
What was the objective? Why did they form
the UCA?
Yeah.
The UCA was formed to bring together a brotherhood, to bring together us as a community, and to identify what our needs were, because the council wasn't doing it, right? And we wanted to set our own agendas of what we wanted from being here, right? That's how Carnival started.
Okay.
Was there any other associations you was a part of?
Not in the early days. No. The UCA was. I was later on.
Yeah.
I became a Black Power woman, right? Black Power was my organization. So Black Power. Things we formed. A younger group of us formed an organization called the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood, and it was like younger, like 20-year-olds, black male and female, boys and girls, men and women.
Yeah.
We formed the Brotherhood.
What was the objective of that organisation?
The Brotherhood, Black Power.
Okay.
Black Power.
So that was like learning about yourself and standing up against brutality.
It was happening in the US.
Okay.
And so we formed. We were going to be supports people for George Jackson, Michael, Angela Davis, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Huey P. Newton, the Soledad brothers. They were in prison in the US for standing up for black people and for rights, black people's rights to determine their own destiny.
Yeah.
And we wanted the same things here, and so that's what it was. So I became part of that. So when my sister would have Elvis Presley on her wall, on her bedroom wall, I had Angela Davis, I had Malcolm X, I had the Soledad brothers. I was Black Power. And when I worked at the gas board, and the only black person in 3,000 people, I wore my free Angela Davis badge, and my mother was livid. You have a good job, and you're gonna put on Angela Davis badge down there among the white people. They're gonna know you're Black Power. That kind of stuff. And I couldn't give a shit. That's who I was. Yeah.
You were standing in your own.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
knew who you were.
I knew who I was.
Yeah.
This
is amazing.
Yeah.
Lovely. Can you tell me about any bad experiences that you felt?
And how you dealt with that?
In what specific context?
Well, it can be in any context. Maybe something to do with you being in any of the groups that you were part of. If there's anything that you had to do, whether you had to go to the police, or do you know what I mean? If you had to do some activism somewhere, or maybe even at work, you experienced maybe not getting. There's a common theme that a lot of our people had to train new people coming in, and then those people got promoted, and you were left at the same grade.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what you want to pull on if you've got several
bad experiences.
Or maybe just people didn't mess with you because they just realised your spirit and didn't play with you anyway.
I think realizing that I had something to offer, but people not realizing that. I think that interaction with that school teacher at that early age.
Did it get you to disconnect?
In a way, but not all the way. I think I was more sensible than that. I think I've always been sensible.
But you'd have listened to what your grandmother said as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Get yourself an education.
I'm sure there would have been many, but I don't know how that I internalized them. Because
you know who you are.
Yeah, and well, I don't know whether I can characterize it. I haven't. My parents characterized it as a bad experience, but I became a young mother. I was 18 years, 3 weeks and 5 days when I became pregnant and gave birth. Right? So that could have been a bad experience, but for me, it wasn't necessarily a bad experience. Initially, I perceived it as the biggest mistake, but I didn't see it that it would stop me from going places. But I did have a bad experience in that, maybe because I was only a young mother, I experienced preeclampsia, which is it's almost deadly experience. It's almost deadly, and I did have that experience where I did.
Story not done. Stay tuned for more heritage stories. If you enjoy these stories, please subscribe, share, and tell your friend them. Unity Does MAATer presents the stories of our Caribbean African elders of the Windrush generation. Legacy stories in Chapeltown. Come and add yours. Contact Unity Does MAATer on 07732 367 190 or email unitydoesmaater MAATR @gmail.com. Your stories, our legacy.